The road to Black Dolphin Prison does not appear on tourist maps. It cuts through the empty steppe of southern Russia, where the land stretches flat and colorless, and the wind seems to erase sound itself. By the time the prison comes into view, most men have already stopped asking questions. They know where they are going. They just don't know how long it will feel like before they disappear completely. Officially, the place is called Penal Colony No. 6. No one calls it that. To guards, prisoners, and those who whisper its name in fear, it is simply Black Dolphin, one of the most feared prisons on Earth. At the gate stands a statue of a dolphin, painted black. It looks almost mocking, a symbol of intelligence and freedom frozen outside a place built to erase both. Behind it rise concrete walls crowned with coils of razor wire, watchtowers staring outward like unblinking eyes. This prison does not try to look humane. It does not pretend. Every man sent here has already been judged beyond redemption. They are serial killers who buried children in forests, cannibals who fed their victims to unsuspecting neighbors, terrorists who planned mass death and watched it unfold without regret. Courts did not ask whether these men could be reformed. The only question was whether society could ever be safe with them breathing free air again. The answer was no. So they were sent to Black Dolphin to serve life sentences with no possibility of release. Not parole. Not appeal. Not old age. Life until death. The journey begins long before the gates. Inmates arrive in tightly controlled transport convoys, shackled at wrists and ankles, bent forward in a position designed to break posture and dignity. When the vehicles stop, commands are shouted. Doors open. Cold air rushes in. Then comes the blindfold. At Black Dolphin, prisoners are blindfolded every time they leave their cells. Not as punishment. As policy. Guards tie thick black cloth around their eyes, cutting off all sight. The reason is simple and terrifying. No inmate is ever allowed to memorize the layout of the prison. No one knows where corridors lead, how many turns there are, or where the exits might be. Even after decades inside, the prison remains a maze of darkness in the mind. Men are guided by force, hands twisted behind their backs, bodies bent forward at the waist. If they stumble, they are dragged. If they resist, they are slammed to the ground. Silence is expected. Compliance is mandatory. The gates open with a metallic scream. Once inside, the rules become absolute. Cells are small, cold, and relentlessly clean. 2 men per cell, never more. Every surface is designed to prevent self-harm or escape. Rounded edges, reinforced steel, concrete floors that echo every movement. There is no privacy. Ever. Cameras watch constantly, even as prisoners sleep. Beds are bolted to the floor. During the day, they are locked upright against the wall, forcing inmates to remain standing or seated on a narrow bench. Lying down is forbidden outside designated hours. Rest is controlled. Comfort is rationed. Conversation is limited and monitored. Eye contact with guards is discouraged. Sudden movements invite punishment. Every morning begins the same way. A loud command. The clank of locks. The smell of disinfectant. Prisoners stand facing the wall, hands behind their backs, legs spread. Guards inspect the cell with methodical precision, looking for anything out of place, dust, scratches, imagined threats. At Black Dolphin, order is survival. Meals arrive through a slot in the door. Thin soup. Bread. Sometimes porridge. Food is fuel, not pleasure. Eating too slowly or too quickly can draw attention. Attention is dangerous. Exercise is allowed, but only in small, enclosed yards surrounded by towering walls. The sky is visible as a narrow rectangle above. Prisoners walk in circles, blindfolded even here, listening to the sound of their own footsteps and the distant cries of birds they will never touch. Time loses meaning. Days blur into weeks. Weeks into years. For most inmates, the outside world fades into something unreal, like a story heard long ago. Faces of loved ones become distorted in memory. Some men stop speaking entirely. Others whisper to themselves, replaying crimes, justifying them, or begging forgiveness from no one. Psychologists visit occasionally, but hope is not part of the program. The goal is containment, not healing. Black Dolphin was built with one purpose: to permanently isolate the most dangerous humans Russia has ever produced. Escape is not considered impossible. It is considered irrelevant. No one has ever escaped Black Dolphin. Not because the walls are too high, though they are. Not because the guards are too many, though they are. but because the system is designed to erase the very idea of escape from the mind. You cannot flee a place you cannot see. And for the men inside, death does not come quickly. Life sentences here stretch on for decades. Some inmates arrive in their 20s and die in their 60s, having never again seen a sunset without bars. Black Dolphin does not execute prisoners. It waits. And for those condemned to live here, waiting becomes the true punishment. This is not a prison meant to scare criminals. It is a prison meant to remove them from existence, slowly, quietly, and forever. By the second year inside Black Dolphin, most inmates understand a single truth. The prison is not trying to break them. It is trying to empty them. Men arrive with reputations that once dominated headlines. Serial killers known by nicknames whispered on television. Terrorists whose actions left cities in mourning. Inside these walls, those names vanish. Files replace faces. Numbers replace identities. Whatever power they once held over others is stripped away the moment the blindfold goes on. In cell 217, a man known in court documents as Inmate S wakes every morning before the guards call for inspection. He does not need an alarm. His body learned long ago when to open its eyes. He sits on the narrow bench, hands resting on his knees, staring at the concrete wall inches from his face. He was a teacher once. That fact is never spoken here. When he arrived at Black Dolphin, he screamed during the first inspection. Not in anger. In confusion. The guards forced him into position, bent forward, hands wrenched behind his back, forehead almost touching the wall. His blindfold slipped for a fraction of a second. What he saw in that instant stayed with him far longer than the pain. Nothing. Just grey. Endless, cold grey corridors that seemed to swallow light. The screaming earned him a week in stricter isolation. No talking. No movement beyond bare necessity. It was a lesson delivered early. Emotion is a liability. Most inmates learn quickly. Cells are shared deliberately. Pairing is not random. Administrators study files, psychological profiles, patterns of violence. Some men are placed with silence itself. Prisoners who do not speak, do not react, do not provoke. Others are paired with mirrors of their own crimes, forcing them to live face to face with what they are. Conflicts are rare, not because inmates are peaceful, but because the consequences are absolute. A single violent incident can result in years without privileges. No letters, no visits, no exercise yard. For men already buried alive, that threat is enough. Guards at Black Dolphin are not brutes. They do not shout unnecessarily. They do not insult. Their power lies in routine, not rage. Many have worked here for decades. They know every regulation by heart. They know that predictability is more terrifying than cruelty. When a guard gives a command, it is followed immediately. Delay is treated as defiance. Blindfolds go on. Hands behind the back. Bend forward. Walk. No talking. No looking. Some inmates try to count steps, even in darkness. They whisper numbers under their breath, hoping to build a map inside their head. Guards listen for this. When they hear it, the route changes. Turns multiply. Numbers become useless. The prison adapts faster than the mind. Letters from the outside are rare and heavily censored. Words of love are blacked out. Details of daily life are removed. Anything that might remind an inmate of what he has lost is considered destabilizing. Families often stop writing altogether. Over time, birthdays go unmarked. Holidays pass unnoticed. For some prisoners, this is a relief. There are men inside Black Dolphin who are genuinely afraid of freedom. They speak of it during therapy sessions in fragmented sentences. Outside, they say, there are choices, expectations, temptations. Inside, there is only obedience. The walls decide everything. At night, when the beds are lowered and lights dim slightly, the prison becomes loud in a different way. Coughing echoes through corridors. Someone cries out in their sleep. Someone laughs suddenly, sharply, then falls silent. Dreams are dangerous here. In cell 219, another inmate refuses to sleep at all. He claims that every time he closes his eyes, he sees faces. Not his victims' faces, those are gone, but his own, reflected back at him, distorted and changing. The psychologist writes notes. Nothing changes. Once a week, inmates are allowed to shower. The process is mechanical. Blindfolds stay on. Hands are cuffed in front, just enough to allow washing. Water is cold. Time is limited. When it ends, Guards pull them away mid-motion. Cleanliness, like everything else, is controlled. Religion is permitted in theory, but faith struggles to survive here. Some men pray constantly, whispering through cracked lips. Others tear religious texts apart, page by page, unable to reconcile forgiveness with permanence. Black Dolphin does not answer prayers. Every so often, a new arrival comes in. The energy shifts. Even the most hardened inmates feel it, the raw panic, the disbelief. They hear the footsteps, the muffled sobs beneath the blindfold, the shouted commands. Then silence again. Old inmates listen and say nothing. They know what comes next, the slow realization that there is no end date, no milestone, no if I behave. Life sentence in Black Dolphin does not mean until you change. It means until you die. Some men count years. Others stop counting altogether. A few carve invisible marks into their minds, measuring time by guards' retirements or changes in routine. When a familiar guard disappears, it is noticed immediately. Death inside the prison is quiet. There are no announcements. One day, a cellmate is simply gone. Another man takes his place, blindfolded, bent forward, breathing hard. The system absorbs loss without pause. Black Dolphin does not rage. It does not celebrate. It does not forgive. It continues. And inside its walls, the most dangerous men alive slowly learn a final lesson. That surviving here is not about strength, intelligence, or brutality. It is about learning how to exist without hope. There is a moment every inmate at Black Dolphin reaches, though no one can predict when it will come. It is the moment the mind stops pretending this is temporary. For some, it happens in the first year. For others, after a decade. But eventually, something small and ordinary triggers it. A missed letter, a forgotten name, a dream that feels more real than waking life. And when it happens, the prisoner does not scream or collapse. He simply goes quiet inside. Psychologists at Black Dolphin call this adaptation. The inmates call it going hollow. Once hollow, men move through the prison like shadows of themselves. They follow commands instantly, not out of fear, but because resistance no longer has meaning. Punishment loses its power when the future has already been erased. But not everyone adapts cleanly. Some minds fight back. These are the most dangerous moments, not because inmates become violent, but because they become unpredictable. A man who has accepted his fate is easy to control. A man who still believes something can change is a liability. Punishment at Black Dolphin is precise and devastating. There are no beatings in hallways. No public humiliation. Violence is inefficient. Instead, the prison removes what little structure remains. The most feared punishment is permanent isolation. A prisoner sent there lives alone in a concrete box, smaller than a parking space. No cellmate. No conversation. Meals arrive silently. Lights stay on longer. Time becomes impossible to track. Days stretch until the edges blur. Some men last months. Others last years. A few never come back the same. One inmate, transferred to isolation after whispering threats during inspection, began speaking to someone who wasn't there. Guards reported full conversations, arguments, laughter, apologies. When asked who he was talking to, the inmate answered calmly, "My future." He was never returned to a shared cell. Self-harm is rare, but not because despair is absent. Black Dolphin removes opportunity. There are no sharp edges. No loose materials. No privacy. Even death is regulated. Instead, inmates punish themselves slowly. They stop eating properly. They stop speaking. They stare at walls for hours, eyes unfocused, lips moving without sound. Some deliberately violate rules just to feel consequence again, to prove they still exist. Guards document everything. Every change in behavior. Every pause before obeying. Every tremor in the hands. The prison studies collapse the way doctors study disease, not to cure it, but to predict it. There are men here who committed crimes so extreme they are never discussed aloud. Their files are marked. Their cells are watched more closely. Even among monsters, there are outliers. These inmates are kept on stricter routines. Fewer privileges. Fewer interactions. When they move, more guards surround them. When they speak, someone is always listening. Not because the prison fears them, because the world does. At night, when the corridors settle into their familiar rhythm, memories become louder. Black Dolphin does not allow television. Music is limited. Silence fills the gaps, and in silence, the past speaks. Some inmates relive their crimes obsessively, replaying moments in exact detail, the sounds, the smells, the expressions. Others rewrite history inside their heads, casting themselves as victims, heroes, misunderstood figures crushed by fate. Psychologists listen without arguing. Arguing would suggest there is something left to debate. Visits, when they happen at all, are conducted through thick glass. No touching. No whispered words. Guards stand close enough to hear every breath. Many inmates refuse visits after the first few years. Seeing loved ones age while they remain frozen is unbearable. Children grow up without them. Parents die without goodbyes. Wives stop coming. The outside world moves on. Inside, time stagnates. One former guard described Black Dolphin as a place where clocks keep ticking, but nothing advances. Promotions, ambitions, even hatred fade. Only routine remains. And yet, even here, fear survives. Not fear of punishment, but fear of dying unnoticed. For men serving life without release, death is the only exit. But dying quietly, anonymously, absorbed by the system, terrifies them. Some fake illness to draw attention. Others cling desperately to routine medical checkups, terrified that if something goes wrong, no one will care enough to stop it. Medical care exists, but it is clinical, efficient, emotionless. Survival is maintained, not comfort. The prison does not want martyrs. It wants containment. There is an unspoken understanding among long-term inmates. Black Dolphin does not need to be cruel every day. It only needs to be inescapable. The certainty of permanence does the rest. One inmate summarized it during a rare recorded interview. Here, they don't punish your body. They punish your future. As years pass, new prisoners arrive, younger, louder, still burning with defiance. Old inmates watch them silently. They know how it ends. Not with rebellion. Not with escape. But with quiet. Black Dolphin does not break everyone the same way. Some men fade. Some fracture. Some remain disturbingly calm, as if this place merely confirmed what they always were. But none leave unchanged. Because Black Dolphin is not just a prison. It is a conclusion.